Hello and welcome to SoulSchool. I'm Theolyn Cortens, and this is the sixth in a series about archangels. There are 8 archangels, guardians of the gates of light, on the lower section of the tree of life. So I've been working through the different archangels, starting from the foot, where we find Sandalphon and Oriel, then moving upwards through the central channel to Gabriel. And then we talked about Raphael on the feminine, yin or passive side of the tree. Then we talked about Haniel on the active, masculine side of the tree, the yang side of the tree. So now we have come back to the pillar of equilibrium, and we're going to talk about Michael, who holds the energy at the center of this group of archangels. This is the central sephira called beauty, Tiferet in Hebrew. So let me share with you the short bit of poetry that I selected when I was writing this book, Working with Archangels. This is also from a Christian poet called Henry Rowe. Angel, king of streaming morn, cherub, called by heaven to shine, guide ethereal, power divine, thou Lord of all within. There's a lot packed into there. So Michael is the angel of the streaming morn, according to this poet, the sunrise. But he's also refers to him as a cherub. We'll talk about that in a moment. And as an ethereal guide, and as a Lord of all within. And that's how we can see Michael as being an inner monarch for us. He resonates with the heart energy. He is golden like the sun. He's always been referred to as the Archangel of the Sun. In this poem, the poet suggests he's a cherub, but more traditionally, he's a seraph and a prince. So he resides at several different levels in what are called the celestial hierarchies. The princes are one level, the seraphim are very high level, and the archangels are yet another level. So it's like Michael is covering the whole range of the hierarchies, which are the sacred levels of divinity. And Michael's name means like unto God. And you can see how that works, because the sun has always been considered as a physical representation of the power and majesty of the divine. So the sun is like God. It's not God, but it's like God. And this is why Michael is depicted in medieval paintings as wearing colours of gold and red for being a seraph. His cloak is often lined with red. In more recent years, some New Age teachers have associated Michael with blue. But although I always say to my students, whatever colour the Archangel presents to you, then go with that. I have a slight caveat about Michael presenting as blue, because I strongly suspect that might be because you've read a New Age book. And blue itself is associated with other celestial beings, particularly with the Virgin Mary, of course, and also with the Shekinah. So it tends to be associated with the feminine. Michael isn't necessarily masculine, although the sun is generally spoken of in masculine terms. On the tree of life, the sun is on the centre, it holds the centre. It's on the balance. It's a pivot. You know, Michael is often shown holding scales. So Michael's energy is like to keep all those disparate archetypes in the lower part of the tree, to hold them in balance so that they can work together and not compete with each other, and that the one side of the balance won't get overloaded, overweighted, and leave the other side of the tree neglected or depleted in energy. And that's the whole thing about this holistic map. It's all about checks and balances. And that is Michael's task. He's like unto God because he is holding the story together. And the story contains all these archetypes. We've got 2 more to meet yet. But so far, we've met the couple at the bottom of the tree, Sandalphon and Oriel. We've met Gabriel. And we've met Haniel and Raphael. And what we're seeing is a picture of archetypes who can offer us different qualities. And those qualities should be complementary, but sometimes they feel like they're competing. And Michael is showing us how to function from the heart and to have the courage to stand in our convictions. Michael's lieutenant, if you like, is Haniel. So stand in your centre, hold your ground. This is who I am. This is where I stand, what I believe in. Hold that with courage, which is a very good key word for Michael. And when necessary, use the energy of Haniel to carve out what you need to do in order to fulfill that which is in your heart. And sometimes, from the standpoint of Michael, it won't be Haniel action that's required, it will be Raphael reconciliation that is required. So stretching out a hand towards what is difficult, rather than trying to fight what is difficult. And there are many stories in recent times of people who have been dreadfully wronged and they've suffered at the hands of other people, perhaps at the hands of prison guards who've tortured them, and that they have still been willing to hold out a hand of reconciliation to the perpetrator. So that's part of the role of Michael. This is why he has these scales, because this is about the balance. And Michael has always been called the commander-in-chief of the Archangels. It's like he's holding those disparate energy fields. We can see that when we look at the map of the tree of life. And in particular, he is in the middle of 4, a group of 4. And we've only talked about 2 of those, Haniel and Raphael so far. But in the next 2 videos, I'm going to be talking about Samael and Zadkiel as the other 2 corners of this square, if you like, in which Michael is the centre. And his energy also flows straight down through Gabriel to the foot, to the kingdom, to the homeland. So you can see, just by looking at the map, how all those threads of energy, all those pathways of energy allow the Michael power at the centre to distribute through the lower part of the tree. And it's an absolutely crucial psychological and spiritual state to arrive at when you can feel centered in the part of you that is like unto God, the part of you, as the poet says, that is the Lord of all within, right? He's very particularly talking about something within you. And that's quite an interesting thing to come from an earlier poet such as Henry Rowe, because over the years, people have tended to think that the archangelic powers that are divinely given are something exterior. But what we're talking about here are the archetypes within the psyche, the archetypes that reside within. And of all of those, the Lord within is represented by Michael, represented by the power of the sun. So when you work with Michael, take on that sense of being the commander-in-chief. And you can be male or female commander. That's okay. You can be like Queen Elizabeth, who has the body of a weak and feeble woman, but the heart of a man, a king. You know, that doesn't matter what gender this is. You are standing in the center of who you are. And that comes from heart energy. It doesn't actually come from head energy at all. And that's one of the great mistakes that we make in the Western culture. We tend to think everything we know and understand about ourselves is something mental. But it's much, much deeper and richer than that, because the Michael energy, which some people would also associate with Christ energy, Christ consciousness it's sometimes called, or enlightenment in the Eastern tradition, is a knowing. It's a gnosis. It's an appreciation of the power that flows through you. And accessing that power gives you a sense of empowerment in the world, knowing who you are, what you have to do. And then as Michael, you harness the other archangels, the other archetypes, to allow you to do what you have to do. You make choices from that central position. You make choices whether to use Haniel energy, whether to use Raphael energy. You make a choice about communication through Michael. You understand what you're attempting to ground at the foot of the tree of life, so that your homeland, your kingdom, will be according to your soul's purpose. And when you say the prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, what you're basically saying is that your soul's purpose will be done as it was in heaven before you were born, and decided it will be done on earth, preferably during this incarnation. So that's what Michael is about for us, and it's enormous and brilliant and majestic, and definitely, you know, it's not just a king, it's like an emperor, great emperor, you know. And I do think that the archetypes in history of people who become emperors and then, you know, put kind of golden crowns on their heads are basically working with that energy field. And of course, they're overtaken by their own egos into thinking that this belongs to them personally. Well, it is personal. It is personal. But it's not personal in the sense that you're going to be the lord of everybody else, like Bonaparte, or one of the Tsars of Russia, or even, you know, one of the kings of England who claimed to be emperor, of the world, or the Emperor, the British Empire. Those great characters are working with that energy, but they're working with it, using it, abusing it. And the role for Michael is for every individual to know that he has his own Lord within him, and that he can step into that power and know that the energy of the divine flows through each individual. There is that of God within each person, regardless of race, gender, ability, disability, whatever. That Michael energy is interior for every human soul. And that's what you need to work with. So choose to work with Michael. You could start with Michael. But we have got 2 more archangels to come in this series. We've got Samael and Zadkiel. So we'll see what challenges arise with Samael shortly. And we'll see what grace is given to us by Zadkiel. If you want to find out more about these archangels, you can read my book, Working with Archangels. You can work with the cards and the book of channeled messages, the angel script. You could join my course, Accessing Angelic Realms. You can self-study on that course, or you can apply for personal supervision with me, and I will be delighted to meet you on a regular basis using Zoom. So keep shining. Many blessings. And I'll be back very shortly with Samael, who will challenge you.